The summer of 2025 will almost certainly be remembered as the moment when the royal family's carefully choreographed public rhythm was interrupted by something at once tiny and monumental: the unexpected arrival of a fourth Wales child whose existence remained, for months, a closely guarded secret. What had begun as a half-heard rumor whispered in a Berkshire farm shop soon grew, by way of WhatsApp threads, private Instagram stories, and the more delicately phrased paragraphs of a Sunday broadsheet, into a slow-burning public mystery. On most royal stories the palace needs only to say "no comment" once and Fleet Street politely moves on. This time the silence was so absolute, and the stakes so personal, that curiosity hardened into determination. Every school-run photograph of the Princess of Wales was re-examined. Every official court circular entry was passed for hidden significance. Yet nothing emerged. No announcement, no hospital steps photo call, no name to enter on the line of succession. All that filled the vacuum were three extraordinary developments: a royal birth hidden from sight, a private confession that escaped palace walls, and a broader debate, within the monarchy and the country, about how much weight a single woman should be expected to carry simply because she married a future king. To understand the magnitude of the concealment, one must first appreciate how deeply royal pregnancies are woven into Britain's national story. For generations the arrival of an heir or spare has been treated as communal celebration. Trafalgar Square erupted into impromptu song when Princess Elizabeth produced Charles in 1948. Bells pealed across the country the night Diana gave birth to William in 1982. Even the 2013 birth of Prince George saw the London Eye illuminated in blue while London taxis offered free rides to passengers named George. These shared moments act as emotional glue binding monarch and populace. They also, more cynically, reaffirm the Crown's most fundamental purpose: ensuring continuity. By choosing to keep a fourth pregnancy entirely private, William and Catherine were not merely protecting their youngest child from cameras, they were gently tugging at the constitutional fabric that says the sovereign's offspring, like harvest yields or wartime casualties, belong to the national ledger. Those close to Kensington Palace insist the couple's reasoning was both practical and psychological. They remembered July 2013, when Catherine appeared on the Lindo Wing steps less than 30 hours after labor, stomach-bound beneath a polka-dot dress, and photographers shouting for angles. They remembered 2015, when Charlotte's birth crowd was so large St. Mary's staff had to erect extra barriers. They recalled 2018, when the princess, suffering acute sleep deprivation after Louis's complicated delivery, nonetheless posed serenely in a scarlet Jenny Packham coat. Above all they recalled January 2024, when Catherine underwent abdominal surgery, learned of a cancer diagnosis, and suddenly became the unwilling epicenter of global speculation about her health. Privacy, in that context, was not indulgence but triage. So the pregnancy unfolded behind the high red brick walls of Kensington Gardens. A handful of senior aides were sworn to complete secrecy. Appointments were booked under assumed names at London clinics that specialize in celebrity discretion. A trusted obstetrician visited apartment 1A for ultrasounds conducted behind blackout curtains. Catherine's public schedule was cut to the bone, ostensibly to aid convalescence from surgery. She attended only a pair of pre-approved engagements, Trooping the Colour, and a brief early years round table, both photographed from fixed positions to avoid revealing a changing silhouette. At Windsor's private chapel, a discreet service of thanksgiving was held in mid-April. The Queen sent a handwritten card and a pair of christening spoons from Gatcombe Park's silver vault. Everything else was silence. The delivery itself, according to two separate medical insiders, occurred late in May at the royal team's preferred maternity wing in Surrey. Staff were cleared from the corridor, shades were drawn. Prince William, who had accompanied Catherine for their previous births, stood at her shoulder again, this time with no press secretary waiting outside. The baby was pronounced healthy, swaddled in hospital-issue cotton rather than the usual designer shawl, then driven back to Kensington in an unmarked Audi. The hospital foyer remained oblivious, the world carried on unaware. Hours later, in the hush that follows labor, Catherine uttered the sentence that would ultimately pierce the palace's veil. "I can't do this alone," she told William. 4 plain words, offered neither in self-pity nor melodrama, but in exhausted honesty. None of the courtiers present suspected that those words would travel beyond the private suite. Yet one did, by August, reach the ears of a respected Times columnist who, after multiple confirmations, printed them beneath the deliberately understated headline, "A Princess Speaks Her Doubt." The reaction was electric. In an institution built on the mythology of unflappable queens, Victoria with her black bombazine resolve, Elizabeth II with her glacial composure, Catherine had voiced a fear every parent knows: the terror of insufficiency. Social media platforms that usually seethe with Republican sarcasm instead poured out sympathy. Parenting forums described cheering aloud when they read her plea. Mental health charities hailed the disclosure as a watershed for maternal exhaustion. Meanwhile, the old guard inside Buckingham Palace flinched. One retired lady-in-waiting told the Daily Mail, "We were taught that royal vulnerability must never escape the drawing room." But escape it did, and the institution faced a choice: armor up or adapt. Within days, Sir Clive Alderton, the King's private secretary, convened a task force of senior courtiers to examine what aides called operational resilience. Their confidential paper, later leaked in part to The Guardian, proposed a radical recalibration. Royal engagements would be triaged according to national significance. Working royals would operate in flexible teams, allowing parents to rotate out for school holidays. Senior advisors would be appointed to coordinate press strategy, so that personal medical crises could never again spiral into rumor. Most strikingly, the paper raised the possibility that non-HRH figures, such as Lady Louise Windsor or the Earl of Wessex, might assume limited public roles, easing the burden on the Prince and Princess of Wales. The King, whose reign was forged in the crucible of personal turmoil, gave his approval in principle. Camilla, recalling her own battles with relentless scrutiny, supported Catherine's need for breathing room. Even Princess Anne, famed workhorse of the family, conceded privately that 21st-century motherhood could not be served by schedules devised in the age of telegrams and steam trains. Yet structural reform addresses only part of Catherine's confession. The other part, voiced in a shadowed maternity suite, concerns emotional labor. Friends say she has begun intensive counseling, not merely for postpartum adjustment, but to process years of accumulated public expectation. William attends some sessions, eager to understand how best to share burdens. The couple have recruited an additional Norland nanny, not as a status symbol, but to guarantee that each child receives individual attention. Kate Middleton, steadfast as granite, divides her week between Bucklebury and London. Louis proudly tells classmates he is a double big brother. And what of the unnamed 4th child? Palace officials insist secrecy remains in the infant's best interest. They will confirm only that the baby, nicknamed Pip in staff circles, is thriving, that a quiet christening took place at Balmoral's Crathy Kirk in mid-August, attended by the King, the Queen, the Princess Royal and 2 godparents known for their loyalty. Pip's gender, according to one source, will not be a matter of public record until the family chooses. Whether that choice arrives at a carefully curated first birthday portrait, or years later, when a teen appears beside siblings at Trooping the Colour, is anyone's guess. In the meantime, the monarchy stands altered. A hidden pregnancy, a private cry for help, a baby without a public name, these facts pull the House of Windsor toward a more human register. The Crown's mystique once relied on the orderly presentation of heirs. Now its relevance may depend on allowing those as parents to shrug off impossible expectations. Catherine's whispered admission falls into the lineage of other royal threshold moments: the Queen's Annus Horribilis, Diana's panorama confession, Harry's podcast frankness about trauma. Each time, the institution flinched, then shifted. Perhaps one day historians will mark May 2025 as another such turning point. The night a princess spoke her limits, the morning a monarchy began recalibrating for a century that prizes vulnerability as much as duty. For now, all that can be heard inside Kensington's nurseries is the soft hiss of a baby monitor, the gentle hum of a mother, one hand on a crib, the other holding a future that no longer feels solely hers to lift. That, at least, is a beginning.